Well, for more on expectations from the opposition political parties in Gauteng, we're joined now by ActionSA Gauteng leader, Bongani Baloyi. Good to have you, and thank you very much for your time. Are you one of those parties with unrealistic expectations?
Certainly not. I think we're quite clear with what we expect Panyaza Lesufi to deal with. The persistent challenges of Gauteng, and more so issues around the economy, issues around load shedding, issues around crime, corruption, and certainly issues around the instability of coalitions in Gauteng. I think as the Premier of Gauteng, he's got a responsibility to articulate a plan that is clear, concise, but that's actually implementable. So I don't think that we operate within the realm of those who are unrealistic in their expectation.
Is he ready to lead this recovery? I mean, as far as you're hearing, let's just take the last couple of days, which I am gathering that will form, by and large, a part of the State of the Province address. The big issue, let's start yesterday. He says that if we are to grow this economy, the first thing and the most important thing that we need to deal with is crime. It doesn't help that some of the best minds are not attracted to the province because of the issue of crime. Some of the best businesses are not attracted to the province because of the issue of crime. So his big plan is to move that particular department, he says, from a 600 million department to a 6 billion rands department. He's going to cut budget wherever he can. Says this doesn't help training DJs how to spin discs if we are not going to be able to have police that know how to police.
Look, that would be a welcome move. And beyond just the promise that he's articulating, we also want to get a sense of how he's practically going to deliver on that ambition. I think dealing with crime in Gauteng, as it manifests in different ways, I mean, if you go across the province, firstly, what enables crime is the fact that the municipalities are unable to implement effectively their bylaws. And then the secondary part is various pervasive crime happening across the province of Gauteng. And if you go to the West Rand, you'll find issues of illegal mining that are there that he has to deal with. You'll find issues of violent crime, gender-based violence, and economic crime that deals specifically with economic infrastructure and targets government infrastructure. And we also understand his limitations because the law is quite clear on whose competence it is to deal with the specific type of crime. So we also hope that he can articulate such vision with clarity and also share with us how it's going to work with the national government to deal with this crime.
Yeah. So far, the things that he says, I mean, do you find them a bit populist? I mean, for example, 3 areas that he's identified, he says these deal with crime. 1, vehicles, 2, money, and 3, guns. Let's look at what he says about money. He says the people of Gauteng must be ready to be inconvenienced a bit because we need to remove cash in our transactions.
Look, I mean, that implies that Gauteng has to digitalize in a very rapid and aggressive manner. Does Gauteng have the infrastructure to do so to ensure that we move towards a cashless society? And cashless with the express understanding that it means and implies that we're moving more towards digitalized and that physical currency doesn't become the order of the day. You need infrastructure to allow for the type of rapid rollout of the type of solution and remove cash as a government. So then we must ask ourselves the question, does he have the exclusive power or the exclusive competence as enshrined in the Constitution which can enable him to deliver on that? And the simple answer is no. He needs multiple role players to enable and to assist him, and possibly changes of the national legislation as well. So that's an ambitious goal for him to set, but I think it indicates that he might be thinking along the same ways that ActionSA is thinking, but it's quite important that he's able to do so. And I think from our perspective that he has to do the right things for Gauteng to move towards the right direction, so that ActionSA in 2024 inherits a government that is already thinking and is aligned with our type of thinking as ActionSA, so we can continue with the work that he is starting.
Yeah. So as far as ActionSA is concerned, you're saying whatever his plan is preparing for you to take over. When are you taking over? 2024?
You're asking a simple question that you just answered yourself. We're taking over in 2024. So whatever he is doing, he's enabling us to continue from there. So it's important for us to ensure that and insist and demand that he does the right things, so government can have a level of continuity, because all of South Africans understand and appreciate the vision of ActionSA, as articulated by our president when he delivered the South African dream, which is an alternative vision, which is really igniting and exciting and mobilizing, and equally persuading people to give hope a second chance with a new vision for the country.
Interesting that you raise that inclination, because knowing the leaning of your president, Herman Mashaba, I know he wouldn't particularly be far from the thinking of combining the efforts of private security in fighting crime in the province of Gauteng. And one of the things that we're hearing from the round table, at least the e-policing round table that the Premier held yesterday, is that he is seeking to combine efforts. He's seeking to consolidate and not to duplicate, but rather to supplement what we already have, particularly in the private sector, in terms of inventions like the e-panic button, something that he says should be widely spread in the Gauteng province.
Look, that's something we would welcome, but remember, as I mentioned in my initial opening remarks, that you need functional, sustainable and stable municipalities who are able to implement their bylaws. If municipalities and metros are not able to implement their bylaws, it effectively means that the problem is now escalated to another sphere of government than they have to deal with. And it's quite true, the fact that you can't have government dealing and responding to the crimes of Gauteng holistically and as an individual or role player. You also need the stakeholders to assist and enable an environment where resources can be pulled both from public sector and private sector to deal with the pervasive crime happening in the province. But we must also appreciate that the crime happening in the province has a number of enablers. One is the simple fact that the national government has not responded adequately to deal with the issue of rural development. That's why you've got such a high number of in-migration to Gauteng and causing the type of problems we have in Gauteng, both from people who are within the country and also people from outside of the country, Africa and also the rest of the world. So we actually need to deal with that and ensure that multiple stakeholders are held accountable and equally part of the response to deal with crime in Gauteng.
So let's look at the energy response then. There was an energy expo so far. We know that there is a task team that has been put together to establish some of the options. And the task team is in the process of developing a portfolio of projects, including Mirafong, a solar 750 megawatt project, rooftop solar PV health facility of 6 megawatts, also OR Tambo Springs Precinct 27 megawatts, LP gas for cooking projects, energy resource efficiency program for SMMEs. Are these all pie in the sky type of projects, or is this something that is implementable?
Well, remember that all of these projects he's listing in terms of energy mix are projects that are geared to alleviate the province with some level of demand management, but equally provision of new capacity and generation to assist Gauteng. But if the national government is not dealing decisively with the issue of energy, stabilizing ESCOM, but equally finishing the power stations that we need, but equally getting into the space and thinking about what is feasible for the country to ensure that we've got a reliable power supply. So unfortunately, Gauteng is hamstrung by the inability of national government to move quickly. And we're all in limbo because we're expecting an energy or electricity minister who could equally, in this case, be an Arthur Mahugate, for an example, because the ANC is known to do and appoint people who are dubious in this case. So we are seated with and hoping with a bated breath and waiting to understand the actual manifestations of these pronouncements. But if there's one thing the ANC has proven in the recent past to South Africans is that the ANC will articulate these beautiful plans but has no capacity to implement them. So it will ultimately remain the responsibility of ActionSA in 2024 to implement some of these plans, but equally the manifestation of ActionSA plans.
Yeah. Do you think we will be able, as a province, to end load shedding?
Look, I think the steps that can be taken. A clear fact for all of us is the simple fact that due to the coalitions in our metros, which are the key centers of economic development and the centers that have economies of scale and conurbation, which should be tasked with the responsibility for generation and securing the pass of Gauteng, that due to coalitions are unable to do so because an environment of instability is consistent in these municipalities. So Gauteng has to take and play a central role in the coordination, mobilization of one plan for Gauteng that deals with mitigation of load shedding and its effect on public infrastructure and private sector equally with the economy that is affecting negatively. So we hope that we can pull together, but I think it's important for him to appreciate that he's got a responsibility to pull the province forward, and the province has to play a central role, not just in coordination and mobilizing, but actually being the implementing agent of some of these energy-related programs.
Yeah. It might not be a central question to the state of the province address, unlike many other years. It was probably the key question. But the question of e-tolls, what's your expectation in what he's going to say there?
Look, I think the finance minister has articulated on e-tolls and the options available. We want finality in terms of e-tolls, and we believe that I think a conversation is warranted with the metropole municipalities in Gauteng to deal with the issues of e-tolls and to find other ways where we can monetize e-tolls and the entries that are there on the various roads in Gauteng to ensure that they could be alternatively utilized for enforcement of road laws, traffic laws and various other laws that speak to issues of transport, enforcement of law and order on the roads, but equally issues of monitoring and maintaining the speed traffic controls in our province. And I think there's an avenue that has been least dealt with in this case.
And as far as the question of creating jobs, because as we do all this, fixing infrastructure, fixing policing, we need to walk as much as we, at the same time, be able to chew, and create jobs while we're doing all this. What are the options and what are your suggestions?
Look, the first part, and I'm repeating for the third time, is to ensure that municipalities enforce their bylaws aggressively. Number two is participation and partnership with the local stakeholders like your CPFs, your neighborhood watch, your BFACs, and various other actors within the safety space, and also the South African Police Service. But important is to utilize technology that's available to ensure that you can combat, prevent, and mitigate, and find criminals when they commit their crime, which means that Gauteng has to be connected to a central operated closed CCTV camera network, but equally participating and engaging with various security companies across Gauteng to ensure that a coordinated response where you pool resources is available for Gauteng. And this is important because if Gauteng does not work, the rest of the country does not work, and we can't deal with the issues of crime. But another part we need to deal with, and that's the part he needs to really speak about at great length and articulate to our residents, is that the issue of non-payment of rates and taxes and services that municipalities are delivering to residents is something that's really crippling Gauteng from moving forward. So we really need to start persuading aggressively our communities that they need to be responsible communities, and most importantly, those who are able and capable and can pay their rates and taxes, they need to pay. If we don't deal with it at a municipal level, it's going to affect the province largely, and we need to change this type of approach and appetite towards the lack of payment of services, which cripples infrastructure, because some of these services are services which cross-subsidize investment into infrastructure. But equally, the Gauteng has to complete unfinished projects which it has abandoned, and the issue of corruption across the board. I think Kutzong, when we visited last week, there's the issue of sinkholes in Kutzong as we speak to you today. Just last week, a school was swallowed by a sinkhole. An employee of the municipality, whilst doing a walkabout within Kutzong, was swallowed by a sinkhole. So I really think that the Premier has to respond decisively to the issues that face Gauteng across all of Gauteng, and not to have a centralized approach and dealing with issues of the metros only. But I think there's been an underdevelopment and investment in the West Rand and in the Citibank. And what's happening to the SEZ that have been proclaimed, or gazetted rather, in Citibank in the West Rand, these are the things that can be used to unlock Gauteng and to ensure that there's economic development and in the increasing of employing people in Gauteng.
So you've already mentioned this issue of municipalities at least 3 times. So let's zoom in on it a little bit. I mean, how do you see that happening, particularly as we look now? The picture that is beginning to paint is that the 3 metros are going to be managed by this ad hoc arrangement of minority parties taking the mayorship and I suppose the ANC and the EFF taking a major part in the portfolios that carry much of the economy.
Look, I think the issue of stabilizing Gauteng from the perspective of metros is a conversation that should be top of mind for Gauteng residents. I think we should find a mechanism to stabilize Gauteng for now and also the future, but equally for the future, more importantly, we must start thinking about modalities that ensure that Gauteng remains a sustainable and very fluid but equally vibrant economy and also a space. And what we've seen across the world is that you see the cities of the world, they carry the same population as we have in Gauteng, like your Beijing, your New York, in fact, much higher population. So I really think that we need to start engaging in that. It does not make sense to have about 11 municipalities or 12 municipalities in Gauteng which become unstable. So we really need to pursue what the global city region concept has put before us, beyond just having wall-to-wall metros, but at some stage thinking about having one authority in Gauteng which manages the space of Gauteng and delivers service and coordinates and moves away from the type of municipalities we have. And that may trigger changing of the constitution and probably the constitution of Gauteng, but equally some laws that enable for a space like Gauteng to have one entity as opposed to having multiple entities that manage the space of Gauteng, as it manifests where you have Tshwane, Johannesburg, Ekurhuleni, West Rand, and the Vaal. I think we need to think about the future, and the future is really one entity.
Appreciate your time, sir. Thank you very much for coming on. Bongani Baloyi, he is ActionSA Gauteng leader there, articulating some of their expectations as far as the state of the province address is concerned.